class. Today I'll be refuting the claim of fact that the banning of shark finning will positively affect our ecosystem. Although I, like many others, can agree with this concept, I believe certain discrepancies in the speech affected the overall credibility. Two of the secondary claims addressed were shark finning is harmful to our environment, and the second one was sharks maintain a healthy ocean. The first one I will first be refuting my opponent's main claim due to the fact that in the year 2000, Bill Clinton signed the Shark Finning Prohibition Act, which banned finning in the within U.S. waters. The main claim should therefore have been the banning of shark finning worldwide, or the banning of importation of shark fins from regions that have not made it illegal yet, will positively affect our ecosystem. The first secondary claim that was stated was how shark finning is harmful to our environment. My opponent had some great numbers explaining how sharks can technically kill, how many sharks we can technically kill in order to maintain the species. However, how could we calculate the accurate population of sharks, or even how many sharks are being killed naturally aside from the shark finning? Also, by providing the number of sharks we can technically kill to keep the species from going extinct, it takes away from the fact that we want to eliminate it or ban it in the first place. In doing this, it also allows the audience to think of simply reducing the number of shark finning, or reducing the number of killings rather than eliminating it in general. Another discrepancy in the claim was how shark finning affects humans. The only piece of evidence that supported this claim was how toxic the level of mercury was found in a bowl of fin soup. How harmful it would be if a person were to consume it. My opponent neglected to mention how 10 different shark species in the Atlantic and Pacific Ocean contain two toxins, mercury and beta-methylaminoalanine, or BMAA for short, in their fins and muscle tissue. According to the National Geographic website, BMAA is produced by some blue or green algae. Recent studies have linked BMAA to neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's disease, dementia, and amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. The second secondary claim that was stated was how sharks maintain a healthy ocean. The evidence provided was very brief and, in my opinion, required further elaboration. For example, when it was said loss of sharks led to the decline of coral reefs, seagrass beds, and loss of commercial fisheries, all I can imagine the audience thinking is how far-fetched these correlations were. In order for the evidence to be more effective and credible, my opponent would have benefited from giving a direct example of the domino effect implied in the evidence given. Sharks, for an example, sharks eat small fish, who eat smaller fish, who eat algae, and that takes away, or that prevents algae growing or overgrowth. Overall, my opponent's humanitarian concept was reasonable. However, due to discrepancies mentioned before, could lose their credibility and lose the impact they have on the audience. Thank you.
All right, well, you did a couple of things that are a little bit problematic. On the second point especially, your argument is mostly that the advocate didn't do enough to prove their point, and there's really a better reason to believe this. In essence, you're conceding the point and suggesting you've turned it into a critique of the advocate's speech as opposed to a refutation of their argument. And critique's perfectly acceptable if you're doing an evaluation, but as a refutation, it's problematic. There's a couple of places where you do that on the first point also. For instance, you suggest that even the attempt to try and quantify the number of sharks that might be able to be killed while still maintaining the species suggests that it's okay to kill sharks, and you say, and we really shouldn't be doing that at all. So in essence, you're saying the advocate's position is correct. I just need, I would like to provide better justification for it than what they've got, and that's not really a refutation. Like I said, that's almost a critique in and of itself. The argument about other poisons being in sharks or other things that are potentially dangerous in sharks, I'm not sure what that gets you in the long run. It seems to me like if shark fin soup is potentially dangerous to people, they'd stop eating it, and then we wouldn't have a problem with the sharks in the first place. So I think that that's one of those things that's missing. I like the idea of the ban on shark finning that the United States put into effect. If you could show, for instance, that similar bans exist in other parts of the world, you might simply argue that says, we already have restrictions. If those restrictions are not working, what makes you think an additional restriction would work? And then you would have an argument about the practicality of the proposition. Although that's a little bit more of a policy argument, the advocate is actually making a policy claim. It's just a pseudo-policy claim. All right, it was well organized. I could follow what you were saying, but the presentation, like, you never look at us, and I think that's a little bit of a problem. All right, thank you.